in terms of those practices that will give teachers a bigger bang for their buck, i.e., that there's evidence to support that using these strategies, whatever those strategies are, the evidence seems to suggest that there is increased student growth and achievement. So I'm a fan of Robert Marzano's 9 highly effective instructional strategies. I use those a lot with the communities I work with. But I know that there are different folks who approach this topic in different ways. You mentioned John Hattie and his meta-analysis. So what are your either go-to people when it comes to the research that they've done that we should all be looking at, i.e. the Marzanos, the Hatties, and what are those practices that evidence or research has shown are potentially more efficacious?
Yeah, I think it's probably subject specific. John Hattie and Dylan William are two authors that really come to mind who are, I think, great generalists. But I think there's other people who have more knowledge of specific subjects. So when I think of reading instruction, I really think of Dr. Timothy Shanahan, Dr. Nell Duke. These are our two leaders in the field who've done a lot of writing, and I think really break it down in easy ways for teachers to understand. When I think of math, I really think of Dr. Bethany Riddle, Dr. John Starr, Dr. Corey Pelletier, Dr. Sarah Powell, shout outs to them, and Dr. Amanda Vander Hayden. These are all people who have written in the field who I think do a great job of translating findings to teachers. But I think there's some, overall principles that we can apply that I think are sort of connected amongst all of these authors. I think most of them would agree that in general, more explicit instruction, it seems to be better than less explicit instruction. And I think of it in sort of way, like the more structured your teaching is, generally speaking, the better outcomes tend to be. And obviously we can get to an extreme on that. I'm not a big advocate, and this might lend me away from some other people here, but just listen, but I'm not a big advocate of the scripted programs where it's like, day one, we will read from this book, from this page at this time. And I even saw one where it's like, you will hold this cup up. You will pour this much water into the cup. You will pour that much water into another cup. You will ask this question to the students. I'm not a fan of that. I think it ends up being like monotonous and boring both for the kids and the teacher. Sorry, I'm probably going to get some hate for saying that. But generally speaking, I think the more explicit, the more learning, higher or more measurable learning outcomes we will see. I think when we have clear expectations, something that always stands out to me is just a little anecdote from my own time being a student. I remember getting essays back in high school and getting that C+ or that B-, thinking, wow, I put so much work into this. Why did I do so poorly? And then having no idea why I got the mark I got. You would just see some vague scribbles all over the page, showing some grammar mistakes, and then that would be your grade. I think the more clear our expectations are, the more our students are going to meet them. I think our students want to be successful. I think if our students aren't succeeding, oftentimes it actually kind of comes down to the expectations weren't communicated clearly enough to the students.
Agreed.
And then another thing is just, it sounds silly, but teach to the test. And that sounds like a weird statement. I feel like you hear that as a bad thing. Don't teach to the test. But I actually disagree. If your teaching doesn't connect to your assessment, why are you assessing that? Why would I assess a thing I'm not teaching? And why would I teach a thing that I have no intention of assessing or measuring? That doesn't mean pull out the test and have the kids memorize the answers. But my expectations in class and my expectations on the assessment should be similar.